Find something interesting. We speak about the Avos Hakadoshim. Avram Avinu, the Gemara tells us, and Sarah, both of them weren't able to bear children initially. Sarah was an akora; she was not. She was barren. Avram was not able to, at his age, to father a child. Although Yishmael was fathered by Avram from Hagar 13 years earlier. Yishmael was born at the time of the conception of Yitzhak, but Yitzhak was conceived. Yitzhak was a miracle. He did not come natural. Yaakov was a miracle, right? The Torah tells us they were married 20 years, and Rivka was Nakora also. What happened? Hashem opened the womb, she was able to have children. That was Yaakov and Yosef. Yaakov, so Yitzhak was miracle. Yaakov was miracle. So the Avos HaKadoshim themselves, two of the three, Avram was able to achieve in himself a level of what? That he was the location of the Shekhinah, although he was born as a pagan. He was born from pagan parents, and he only became a monotheist later. But Yitzchak and Yaakov were miracles. Everything about the Mishkan was an act of Hashem. We spoke about the material was the spoils of the sea. The ability for the craftsman to develop the materials as the most sophisticated craftsman was why? Because, as it says, Hashem put chokhmah b'leiv kol chacham leiv. And it was only knowledge. It was even the agility that they needed to be able to develop them. Hashem endowed them with that ability. And then the Hakobas HaMishkan. Raising the Mishkan humanly was not possible. It only came through Hashem's intervention. He was able to raise it. I mean, this level to have that relation with Hashem only came about, had nothing to do within the human capacity, or within the natural capacity. At a natural level, you couldn't have the Mishkan, you couldn't have the Avos HaKadoshim, and you weren't able to have even the erection of the Mishkan. Raising it was miracle. So what exactly is the participation of the person? We spoke about one's livelihood. One's yearly stipend is pre-designated on Rosh Hashanah for the year. However, you have to take initiative to activate that stipend. So literally, it's the same concept of Yogata Motzosa. Just as Torah, it's an endowment. You only have to meet a certain prerequisite, which is called Yigia, toiling, as the Ramchal writes in Mitzvot Shishorim, because that was the curse of B'zei Sapecha Toch Alechem. By the sweat of your brow, you will eat bread. So you have to meet that prerequisite to be able to receive your stipend. When you reach that, Hashem gives it to you. But the way everything was set up, the framework was, we take initiative and Hashem gives. We speak about Tenu Ozle Lokim. We empower God, right? What we say in Psukei D'Zimra, Tenu Oz. Give power, we empower God. How do we empower God? When we do the mitzvahs, we create a worthiness, and Hashem responds. So the bracha that comes into the world is a result of our doing the mitzvah. We do the mitzvah, Hashem responds with bracha. We don't do the mitzvah, Hashem withdraws. So again, what is the basis for bracha? It's not it's not we created the bracha. We create the worthiness because we took the initiative. We met that prerequisite. Now Hashem gives the bracha. It's everything that exists within existence, which has to do with spirituality and the world reaching its level of perfection, is only due to an endowment. Everything's an endowment. Hashem only has relevance to something he endows. If it's a human creation, he doesn't have anything to do with that. The Mishkan, although physically they were involved, but the ability to do what they did was because they were endowed with the Chokhmah. The material, Hashem gave them that material. Look, they had to gather it to see, but Hashem gave them that material. They had to take that initiative. Livelihood, you have to take the initiative. So everything is only initiative, but the end result is an endowment. That's what it is. I mentioned yesterday the Shalom Kodesh that the investments were Lechover Tiferes, and Moshe Rabbeinu, when he officiated for the 7 days to initiate the Mishkan before Aaron and his children began officiating on the 8 days, he did not need vestments because his body was the vestment, as the Shalom Kodesh explained. His body was the vestment, except Adam, when he ate of the tree of knowledge, he putrefied the vestment. As a result of that, we need something to compensate for the body. Because the body initially was meant to be the vestment of the neshama, and now that the vestment has been disqualified because it's been putrefied, you need something to replace the body. So now, what is the form of the body? What is that? Ramach. Ramach Ivorim. 248 parts to the body. That is the structure of the vestment. So now that we have the big day kuna, the priestly vestments, l'chov teferes, that means within those vestments, there's a corresponding factor which correspond to the 248 parts of the body. Right? Because we're saying we need the new vestment because the original vestment which was intended to be the vestment has become disqualified because it became putrefied. So we need a vestment which would be a replacement of what? And we explain why is it 248? Because there are two, as the Reb Chaim Vital explains, because the 248 components to the neshama. So the vestment, the body which facilitates that infusion of every component has to correspond to the neshama. Now that vestment has been disqualified. So we need another vestment which corresponds to the neshama. So within the vestment of the Kohen Gadol, the Chovat Tiferes, for honor and glory, there is a representation of that vestment, which is the equivalent of 248. Because again, to have a vestment which is not within that context of corresponding factor, it's not an appropriate vestment. You follow what I'm saying? The Gemara says, we have certain what's Maral says when we speak about 265, 365, which correspond to the Mos Hashana, to the solar year, it's not it's much more than mnemonic. Say, if you want to remember how many negative commandments there are, it corresponds to the solar year, which is 365. That's simply the way everybody understands it. The Gemara says it's much more than that. So he explains it as we're talking right now. There's rotation of the earth. It rotates. The rotation of the earth is a 365-day rotation. So when the world rotates on its axis, the reason why it functions as it's meant to function is because it rotates the way it rotates, which is a 365-day rotation. So the way Hashem created the world to maintain the order as it was meant to function, that the world should not be destroyed, should not go off its axis, which is destruction. It has to rotate on that 365-day rotation. So to maintain order, maintaining order is 365. Hashem gives us a neshama at a certain base level. To maintain that what you're given, that it should not be diminished, you must observe 365 negative commandments. Because if you violate any one of those 365 commandments, any one of them, you're out of order. The neshama is not functioning within its order as it's meant to function at the base level. It's the same idea. So the number for order is 365. So for the neshama to maintain its order of what it's meant to be, as given, it's 365. To advance the neshama, that's 248. That's the doom mitzvah. So I was just thinking, the Gemara tells us in Shabbos that what is the neshama the equivalent of? Moshel me'adav, a king goes and distributes to his subjects pristine quality garments. And the king says to the subjects, in the future, I will come back and I will retrieve these garments that I'm giving you, quality, pristine, clean at the absolute level, and I want you to return them to me as I gave them to you. This is Gemara Shabbos. So it says, the wise subjects, and then you'll be rewarded. The wise subjects went and they took care of those garments, that they should always be maintained at that perfect level as initially they were given. The fools, they took the garments, they went out into the field and worked, they soiled them, they shredded them, and finally, in the future, the king comes back, says, I'd like you to return these garments that I gave to you. The wise ones, the responsible subjects, gave them back in this ornate box in perfect condition. He says, because you were so dedicated and you followed my dictate, you go into the palace. The other ones who returned shredded garments that was embedded with dirt, he says, you people, you're going to be condemned. Not only you're not going to the palace, you're going to be punished. So what is it? Hashem gives us a neshama. He says, when I'm ready to retrieve it, I want it to be minimally in the state that I gave it to you. I don't want it to be soiled. I want you to minimally give back in its pristine state. So the wise one, we give that neshama, a person who follows Hashem's dictate. Not only do we give it back that it hasn't been compromised, which is soiled, shredded, we give it back in that ornate box, it's even more advanced. The fools, not only don't they advance it, they shred it, they destroy it by violating the negative commandments. So the moshel, the example, the allegory of soiling, the soiling is the negative commandment. Putting it in that ornate box and giving it back in that special pristine condition, that's the advancement. That's the mitzvah say. These craftsmen, they take the gold, the wool that's dyed, tcheles argomon. So we said Rashi explains tcheles is green, argomon is purple, the wool dyed purple, that's tolas hashoni, that's the crimson, that's hashesh, and the linen. So Rashi explains what's they will take. Osam chachmei lev shiasa begodim. Yikablu min misnadim misazov misatcheles lasus menes begodim. The chachmei lev, who are endowed with the special ability, will take the material from those who are donating it. Misnadvim esazov misatcheles lasus menes begodim. So it's interesting. We explained Hashem gave wisdom into the heart that had wisdom. Now, so where does it begin? Right? Nosati chochma lev kol chacham lev. I will give wisdom into the heart that contains wisdom. So how do you have that initial wisdom? So we mentioned name of Chaim Voloshna, Reishis Chochma Yiras Hashem, that the beginning of Chochma is revering, fearing Hashem. That's Chochma. If you were a Yorei Shamayim, you qualified to receive this endowment of wisdom, of ability. If you did not have that, meet that minimal level of Yiras Shamayim, Hashem did not give you that endowment. And this Chochma that you have in your heart, that's something you create. Why? We had said, the only thing which we determine whether it happens or not is Yiras Shamayim. And that's the Gemara. The pronouncement of the destiny of a person is not tzaddik v'rosha. Whether you be righteous, devout, or evil, chas v'sholem, that's up to the person. That's hakol b'dei shalom chutz Yiras Shamayim. Brilliant, foolish, strong, weak, healthy, infirm. That's predestined. So the leiv kol chacham leiv dosati chochma is the person who's the Yiras Shamayim. He receives this endowment. Okay? He says, so the misnadvim, they would bring the gold, the silver, whatever's needed, the material, but the craftsman, for that you need that special chokhmah. And to be qualified for that, you have to have Yiras Shamayim. But it's interesting, he uses the term, Yikablu min ha-misnadvim. They will receive from the donors. Now, we've mentioned this in Or Chaim HaKodesh, in Parshas Vayakel, we find there were two classifications of Jews who participated in the Mishkan. We find Asher Nodvo Libo and Asher Noso Libo. We always mention this very profound Or Chaim HaKodesh. What's the difference between Nodvo Libo and the Sol Libo? Nodvo means the heart is generous, the generous heart. And the Sol Libo means the one who was inspired by his heart. You were inspired. So the Or Chaim HaKodesh says, we find when it speaks about the Jew who was Nesol Libo, it says Ish Asher Nesol Libo. Ish is always an appellation for a person who's at a special advanced level, a special classification, Ish. When it says Nodvo Libo, it doesn't say Ish. That means the soul libo is a more advanced level than Nodvo Libo. So what's the difference? Let's say a person is very generous and you ask him for something. To what degree does he give you? He gives you to his best ability. But what is that? What is the maximum he could? What's his maximum quotient? As much as he could give. Because if he's going to compromise himself, he's not crossing that line. Because he says, that's all I could give. A person who's inspired by his heart, he doesn't think about himself. All he thinks about is the objective. We have to achieve that. So you'll find even a person of medium income who gives like a rich man. Because all that matters is not himself. It's the objective has to be met. The solely means the Mishkan has to be built. That's the ultimate. We have to achieve that. Even if I have to give away more than I can even afford, doesn't make a difference. Because there's not the me, it's only what the objective is. A person who has that level of understanding, that's Ish. He merits the qualification of Ish. He's Ish, he's that special person. Nodvo Libo, he's generous. But you're not at that level, because you only give, you have a maximum. Because you think about yourself. It's not selfless. You can only be selfless if you're inspired. Therefore, it's Ish, the Sol Libo? No. Who is the Sol Libo? If a person has Yiras Shamayim, that's Leiv Kol Chacham, Leiv Nosu Chochma, Nasati Chochma. The one who has embedded in his heart the Yiras Shamayim, Hashem gives that Chochma to that person. When you have that Chochma, that is the person who has, that's the basis to be inspired. Because I understand who Hashem is. As a result of that, It's unlimited what I'll do. The other person who didn't merit that special endowment, he gives. What does he give? He gives because he was given that. We need a Mishkan, I'll give. How much do I give? But that person who doesn't have that ability of the craftsmanship and the know-how and the agility, why didn't he merit it? You know why? Because he didn't meet the minimum level of Yerushalayim. So we have two types of Jews. There's Hamisnadvim, like he says, the ones who gave the gold, the material. And then you had the craftsmen who had this endowment of wisdom, and that was based upon the Yerushalayim. So those people are Ish. They are that special classification, the special echelon of craftsmen. The others not craftsmen. They are what? They are the ones who have the capital, so to say. They give the capital. What do you do with it? The ones who have the know-how of investment, what to do with it, they are the special people. They're just not investors. They are actually putting the money to work. We differentiate between Chocham and Novon. What's the difference between a Chocham and a Novon? So Chazal, Chocham means you have wisdom, you have knowledge. Novon means you take that knowledge and you apply it to other things and you advance and expand that level of knowledge. And it says, what is it? What is it analogous to? A person has a large number of coins, and he has the coins, he counts them once, twice, 1,000 times. But as much as he counts them, the coins don't increase. But the person who has the know-how, he takes those coins and he invests them, and he actually multiples, he takes those coins and he turns it into multiples. That's the novel. Chocham is what you have. Doesn't go beyond to what you have. The novel advances it. That's the difference. Nodvo Libo are the ones who brought the material. I'll give you the material. Naso Libo, as you understand the value of that, you take it to another level. And that's why they merited the endowment of Belev Kol Cham Nosi Tzati Chochma. They merited that special Chochma. The whole concept of Yogaita Motzosa, who takes Torah and makes it into Asay Torah Keva Mlach, right? Person says, you mean you study 6 hours a day? You mean you don't spend 14 hours in the office? Doesn't make any sense. I understand study a little bit, but your primary emphasis is on the study. You say, Shammai says in Pirkei Avos, Asay Torah Keva Mlach, right? I'm following the advice of the great Shammai. That's if you study Pirkei Avos. But you only understand that if you're at a certain level. Asay Torah Keva. You want good advice, that's what you should read. Otherwise, if your work is primary and your Torah is secondary, then you're not doing it the right way. That means because you don't have the appreciation what the value of Torah is. If you had that understanding what the Torah is, but again, as we said, we're not talking about quantitative. We're talking about qualitative. Person says, why do I work so hard? Because I want to just provide material for my family? Or because I want to provide that setting for my children to develop in a family to be committed Jews, to support the institutions that have to be supported, to give tzedakah. So there, even the material, the objective of work is not for the work, it's not for the material return. It's to have the material as a means to do the mitzvah. That's Torah Keva. That's not Malach Keva. That's your work is not primary. The whole thing is the perspective. Where's the mind? And if that is the mind, you go for it, and unceasingly, you're always there. If you're talking for yourself, you've had enough. I was just thinking, we say, Asi Torah Keva Mlach Ta'aroi. Who's Torah Keva? The one who's motivated, who appreciates it. And that's why it's primary. The one who doesn't have that, what is it? Yesh lo mana rotzeh mosayim. You have 100, you want 200. You have 400, you want 800. As much as you have, you want the multiple of that. So the more you have, what do? The gap gets wider. So it comes out like this. Just as in Torah, Mlach Charai, and Torah Sakeva, the more Torah you have, the more motivated you have to have more Torah. When it comes to the material, the more material you want, the less material you have. You always look what you don't have, not what you do have. It's literally the same concept. When it comes to Torah, the more Torah you have, the more Torah you want. That's Torah Keva. If your Torah is not Keva, you know what Melachta Keva is? As much as you have, you want multiples of what you have. Yeshlo million, you want another million. When you had 100, you only wanted 100. It's how far away from your goal? 100. Now that you're holding by a million, you want a million. So how wide does the gap become? Again, we have to have that balance, because if you don't have the balance, it's equal. It's literally the same profile, the same effect. You see what I'm saying? Lokafto eshtei avni shoam. You take the two shoam stones, upitachto aleim shmos bnei Yisrael, and you should etch into those stones the names of Bnei Yisrael, the 12 tribes. So over here, if you take a look in the Balaturim, Shtei Avnei Shoam, the two stones which are on the shoulder of the Kohen Gadol, Keneged Beis Luchos. They corresponds to the two Luchos, Shehem B'milui Shin Hey Mem. If you take Shin, what does it mean, Milui? You take Shin and you spell the word Shin. How do you spell Shin? Shin Yud Nun. Mem is mem, right? Hey is hey. If you add up the gematria of those letters, which are spelt b'miluan as they're spelt, the gematria is haluchos. So the two stones correspond to the two luchos habris. The two, okay? Then it says Shisha Mishmosam or Even Achos. 6 names are on one stone. That's Shisha, Shmo Shisha Nosar Mal Even Hashenis Kikol Dosam. And the other 6 names are the other names. So we take a look at Balaturim. Shisha Shmosam Al. Rashi Tevos Shema. Sh'amru Shema Yisrael. Yeah. We find that the Gemara says in Psochim that Yaakov, right before he passed away, when he wanted to reveal the Kates, he questioned whether his children were at that certain level. So what did they say? Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Shema Yisrael. Yisrael was referring to the father. Shema Yisrael. Our father Yisrael should hear, we're at Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. That's what he gave him the bracha. And when he wanted to reveal the Kates, and Hashem kept it from him. But that established them in Yaakov's eyes that where he wanted them to be. So the Shisha Mishmosam is Rashi Tevos Shema, She'amru Shema. Why did they qualify? Why did we qualify to receive the two Luchos Even, the 10 Commandments? Because Yaakov Vinu, they had said to their father, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. So it's alluded, the basis why we're there, it's just not to be believed. Yaakov lived in a pagan world. It's not only his children were monotheists. Being monotheist, he says there's no other power. Yichud Hashem goes beyond monotheism. Yichud Hashem means that nothing exists outside of God. That means God is infinite, and therefore it's something we can't relate to. Even the Reb Chaim Volozhin writes in Nefesh HaChaim that even an angel cannot fathom this. Because if God is everything, so who are we? We're a manifestation, he wills us. But if he's all over, that means we are him. What do you mean we are? How do we somehow work it out? How do we reconcile it? He says it's not possible. Within creation, there's no way to understand it. We accept it. We are we, he's in heaven, but he's all over. But the way he wants us to function and perceive him, he's in heaven, we're on the terrestrial level. And he causes the terrestrial level to function, but it's much more than that. So Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, Echad means he's one. Everything is him. So the reason why, so what level were Yaakov's children? Not that they believe in God. That the deities are what? Just manifestation of God's will. The deities are no different than we are. As we are part of his echad, the malachim is part of his echad. Everything's part of his echad. It's all the same thing. That was their level. To be able to accept that at that level, you're worthy for the Shnei Luchos Abris. The Rashi by the Luchos in Parshas Yisro brings from Rav Saadia Gaon that the whole Torah in its entirety is alluded to in the Ten Commandments. In the Aseret Dibros, everything's alluded to over there. All Torah mitzvahs. So Rav Saadia Gaon goes, Rashi doesn't explain how, but he says, Rav Saadia Gaon says that within the Ten Commandments, every one of the Torah mitzvahs is alluded to. So that's the totality of Torah. Why did we merit that? Shisha Mishmosam. Okay? Shisha Mishmosam Al.